What do you think about the NBA and NBC really leaning into the nostalgia factor between Michael Jordan, Roundball Rock, like the emphasis on starting lineups, some of the graphics, even Jim Fagan's voice being back? Like, how do you feel about that? First, as a basketball fan.
Well, I love that. I think that a lot of us, whether it's people my age, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, there are always moments where you say, I would love to go back and re-experience this. Just as we were talking about that first epic memory of
Yep.
NBA fandom. So I think there's something great about that. I also go back to doing the Nickelodeon broadcast the first time that we got to do that. Nate Burleson and I talked before we sat down and did it, and we said, "Look, Nickelodeon obviously wants to push all their current stuff, and we're going to do all of that. That's important to them. It's important to us. It's important to their core audience, which is kids ages 6 to 14 or whatever it might have been. But with those kids who are 6 to 14, we're also going to have their parents and maybe their grandparents. So how can we invite them in? And that's why we went with some of those 90s references, the Ren and Stimpy, the Guts, the Legends of the Hidden Temple, all of that stuff. We try to make sure we included that as well. I think that's what NBC is going to do. Rick Cordella has gone on record and talking about this, and he's, I think, kind of gotten us to the place for next year where it's a blend. It's not just going to be all nostalgia, which I think some people are expecting at this point.
Yeah.
It's, can you blend that nostalgia with the current game and find this perfect marriage between the two? I think we can. And I think that you can benefit off of doing both of them while celebrating the past and doing things that worked in the past while also building up the future. And that's really our goal over the next 11 years, is to build up the future of this league and continue to push the stars and push the teams and push the stories more than anything. And I think that's what NBC is so great at with our current properties, whether it be Sunday Night Football, what we do on Big Ten Saturday night, and certainly with the Olympics, is storytelling and getting to the heart of what these amazing athletes have done, how they've gotten to this point, how the teams have been built, the players behind the scenes that you don't even think about, whether they're in the front office or assistant coaches. That's, I think, what we're going to try to do. And that's certainly what they did in the 90s and early 2000s. So the hope is that with all that nostalgia, we still get to the meat of what you're looking to get to for an audience.
Yeah, and I think that finding that right mix and blend is important, because like nostalgia, it catches my attention, but usually if it's a show or something like that that's coming back, like it's good for one or a few episodes, but that's about
Sure.
it. So like while I'm all in and I'm excited every time NBC makes another throwback type of announcement, I am curious to see how long that excitement lasts. And I think blending it with the current NBA is the important factor there. How do you feel about the emphasis on nostalgia from in announcer standpoint, in terms of like the use of AI, like Jim Fagan,
Hmm.
um, Al Michaels during the Olympics? Is this potentially a slippery slope to where they'll eventually have like could Marv Albert eventually be calling NBA games again, or maybe it even starts as an alt cast, but like is there going to be a time when we see John Madden and Pat Summerall eventually calling
Hmm.
NFL games again? So like, have you thought about this, like where it goes?
Yeah, I was asked about it recently, and I said, I think everybody, no matter what field you're in, there is a concern with what AI can do. And the joke I always made is, I've seen too many movies where the robots eventually take over, right? Haven't we learned from all of that media that we've gotten to consume over decades that the Terminator is not necessarily a good thing? But with that being said, I do think it's a tool. And I think that as we continue to learn what it's capable of and what we can truly use it for, there are aspects that it can be positive. To answer your question more directly, there's always a concern. I think the one thing that AI is always going to lack is the human touch. And for broadcasting, and certainly live broadcasting, a live event, I think it's difficult. What they've used it so far for, to your point, are voiceovers. And I feel for the voiceover actors and voiceover broadcasters out there that potentially would lose jobs because of it. However, just answer it more so directly towards me and my job and play-by-play for sport, whether it's basketball, football, tennis, etc. You do lose the human aspect. So the big play happens. There's an immediate human reaction that I think is required still to do a good job within the broadcast, because you're going to match what the audience is going to feel. And there might be people that don't care about that. But if I had to guess or bet, if you had one broadcast that was AI and one broadcast that was a human being, I think people would gravitate towards the human being, just because they would get more of that feel of, we go back to the nostalgia aspect. You're not getting the real John Madden necessarily. You might get a phrase, you might get here, but what made John Madden so great was his reactions. What I think makes Chris Collinsworth great are those reactions in the booth. The whoa, we're all feeling that, right? We're watching going, whoa, what just you need that to me. I think we all require that. So that's where I still feel okay about where we're at, but we'll see how everything develops. Hopefully the Terminator doesn't come and Judgment Day is still far away.
Yeah. I think the fact that there's always so many complaints anytime broadcasters are calling a game remotely. Like
Yes.
if fans are able to tell the difference of whether an announcer is there or calling the game from somewhere else, I think we'll always be able to tell whether it's being called by a real person or an AI generated voice. So I do think I still think that announcers are pretty safe from that standpoint.